Thanks, Sandra, and welcome to the special edition of Hannity. Race for the White House, Trump versus Clinton. Now, it's been just one day since Hillary Clinton released a deplorable political ad attempting to link Donald Trump to the Ku Klux Klan. But now Trump is responding in a huge way with two brand new ads of his own, including one video reminding voters how the Clintons may have deployed racist tactics and rhetoric during Hillary's 2008 Democratic primary against Barack Obama. Watch this.
When we arrived in South Carolina yesterday, this was the state newspaper. Clinton camp hits Obama, attacks painful for black voters, many in state offended by criticism of Obama and remarks about Martin Luther King. It's as if you are minimizing I Have a Dream. It's a nice sentiment, but it took a white president to get blacks to the mountaintop.
And in another ad, the Trump campaign slams Hillary Clinton's support of then-President Clinton's crime bill and her use of the term super predator. Look at this.
They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel.
You called out President Clinton for defending Secretary Clinton's use of the term super predator back in the 90s when she supported the crime bill. Why did you call him out?
Because it was a racist term and everybody knew it was a racist term.
No conscience.
It's a very well thought out crime bill that is both smart and tough.
No empathy.
Black youth superpredators in 1994. Please explain the record.
Because it was a racist term and everybody knew it was a racist term.
So this counterpunch from Donald Trump will prevent future race-baiting attacks from Hillary Clinton. Joining us now with reaction, the chairman of the Tea Party Forward, Niger Innis, also senior pastor of the New Spirit Revival Center, Daryl Scott, co-host of The Five, Juan Williams, is with us. Juan, let me ask you a question. Do you not find trying to tie Donald Trump to the Ku Klux Klan and putting up guys in Klan hats and all this stuff, I've got to imagine even you recognize this for what it is, and that's Hillary Clinton, her campaign, needing to distract from the fact that she got caught selling access while Secretary of State, and she's now race baiting. Do you find it deplorable? Do you condemn it?
No, not at all. In fact, I agree with your premise that the narrative has shifted over the last few days. But you know what? Given the fact that when David Duke was endorsing Donald Trump and saying it would be traitors for any white guy not to vote for Trump.
And he condemned him again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
Niger, how many times do you have to... Whoa, hang on a second.
What you saw there, it was that Ku Klux Klan member was saying, here's the reason we support Donald Trump. He supports our point of view.
If we're going to play guilt by association, let's listen to Hillary Clinton praise the former Klansman himself, Robert KKK Byrd. Let's listen to her.
Senator Byrd was a man of surpassing eloquence and nobility. From my first day in the Senate, I sought out his guidance, and he was always generous with his time and his wisdom. I admired his tireless advocacy for his West Virginia constituents. As Secretary of State, I continued to rely on his advice and counsel.
Yeah, her mentor, advisor, and counselor. Let's listen to Senator Byrd on with Tony Snow on Fox News Sunday some years ago.
There are white and I've seen a lot of white in my time. I'm going to use that word. But we just need to work together to make our country a better country.
Now Hillary Clinton is also seeking the advice of this man, a guy who's been in the White House many, many times. You know him very well. Let's play the greatest hits of Al Sharpton.
I'm tired of the McAfee. You ain't nothing. You a punk. Now come on, do something.
We're the best chicken fries in the universe. And we don't want to buy some kind of sandwich chicken. Folks was in the cave when we had built empires. We learned to admire them, but they knew to admire us. We built pyramids before Donald Trump ever knew what architecture was. Yes. You want to be the only on television, the only in the newspaper, the only can talk.
Niger Innis, if we're going to play this guilt by association thing, I think that's all fair game, don't you?
No question. We know that William Fulbright was Bill Clinton's mentor. And we know that it was alleged that in the Senate dining hall that when then Senator Obama was thinking of running against his wife, he said to Ted Kennedy, a few years ago, that guy would have been serving us coffee. Yeah. So, I deplore when the race card is used anytime, because unlike a lot of folk, you know, that era of racism, real racism within our country that affected black Americans is something that's very painful to me, and it's something that's sacred within our country that we should not be playing around with. But let me give credit where credit is due. Donald Trump is not going to just take crap without it being unanswered. That's true. And I think that's the signal that he wanted to send.
But Niger, you and I have been friends for a lot of years, and I had the honor of being at many of the core dinners with you and your dad for years on Martin Luther King Day and celebrating this, and there were people of all races, creeds, colors, backgrounds there. And I got to tell you something. Every 2 to 4 years, we see the same thing. Pastor Scott, let's start with a 1998 Democratic Party radio ad in Missouri. Elect Republicans, black churches are going to burn. Listen to Al Gore. We'll play that too. He says Republicans have the wrong agenda for African Americans. They don't even want to count you in the census. Let's play it. It happens every 4 years.
When you don't vote, you let another church explode. When you don't vote, you allow another cross to burn.
On June 7, 1998, in Texas, my father was killed. He was beaten, chained, and then dragged 3 miles to his death, all because he was black. So when Governor George W. Bush refused to support hate crimes legislation, it was like my father was killed all over again.
It's wrong what the leader of the Republican Party and this Congress are doing in blocking an accurate census because they don't want to count everyone that they don't think they can count on.
They are in favor of affirmative action if you can dunk the basketball or sink a three-point shot. But they're not in favor of it if you merely have the potential to be a leader in your community and bring people together. Don't tell me we've got a colorblind society.
And then he screamed, they don't even want to count you in the census, Pastor. Every 4 years, the Democratic Party plays the race card. True or false, Pastor?
That's absolutely true. Pin the racist on the Republican every 4 years. That wouldn't happen to be the same Al Gore whose father opposed the signing of the 1964 Civil Rights Bill.
That would be the same guy. That's correct. And the same mentor of Hillary that literally filibustered the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act. Is that correct, Juan Williams? I believe you're right, Pastor.
Yeah. Are you asking me or the pastor?
Pastor.
No, we're asking you too, Juan. I mean, his father opposed the Civil Rights Bill.
There's no question. But what I'm just amazed at is how far you guys are reaching tonight. Because what we have is a 2016 election in which you have a candidate who started the whole birther thing about President Obama. You have a candidate who's been investigated by the Justice Department.
What does that have to do with discrimination? Let me ask an important question. Pastor, I want to ask you this.
That came out of the Clinton camp.
This is more important. Hillary Clinton.
Hang on a second, guys. Came out of the Clinton camp, and you know it.
Pastor, Niger, let me go to you.
If I could get in on this.
Niger, I want to ask you a question because this is important.
Yeah, sure.
So, since Obama's been president, first black president, forget about all the foreign policy disasters of Hillary, we have had a 58% increase of black Americans that are on food stamps under Obama. We've had a 20% increase black Americans out of the labor force under Barack Obama. Hillary says she'll continue those policies. Are black Americans better off under Barack Obama?
Don't ask me, ask Cornel West, who has said several times,
and
absolutely not. All right? But this is larger than the president. We're talking about 50 years of a political Berlin Wall within black America that has to be shattered. And the fear that the Democratic Party has is that Donald Trump has the attitude and the will, and he will do what it takes to win this election and to break down that wall.
Donald Trump's outreach to African Americans is so effective that it brought Hillary out of hiding. I mean, there was a hashtag, where's Hillary? But she fears that Donald Trump's outreach and the statements that he's been making towards African Americans about how he can improve the quality of life for a number of African Americans, it struck a nerve with her campaign. And they told her, you have to do something. So she went on TV, she opened up a pickle jar to prove that she's healthy.
There is a
that's a good one. That's a good
So
one.
now we don't have any more health concerns. They should have gave her John Mayonnaise a Miracle Whip and see if she could open that.
Now, gentlemen, but you have to admit that when it comes to Donald Trump is the one who called her a bigot to start this off. He had a pre-buttal, and the reason that he did that is because Donald Trump is calling the Mexicans rapists and thieves. He's saying that black people are responsible for most of the murders
You're
of white people.
mischaracterizing that on purpose. Don't be inaccurate on purpose. You're purposely mischaracterizing it. There have been people, illegal immigrants, that have committed murders, committed rapes. Excuse me, I interviewed these parents.
Let me get in here, Sean.
Niger, go ahead.
Look, Juan, I've said from the beginning of this campaign, not on a rival network, but on another person's broadcast, that Donald Trump is a political provocateur. He wants to cause a reaction because he wants to win. He shifted, when he said that, he shifted the entire discussion on immigration, which had been going a particular way. He did it with a purpose, and it was mission accomplished. He is in this to win, and that's what folk are scared about more than
Niger, what are you saying about the fact that he's flip-flopping now on immigration? Niger, this is not about us. This is about Trump trying to reach to white people in the Republican base.
Right there. Listen, here's the thing. If you allow, there are 8 million illegal immigrants in this country that have jobs now. We have 95 million Americans out of the labor force, a 58% increase with black Americans that are on food stamps, 20% increase of black Americans out of the labor force. So if you don't build the wall, disproportionately black Americans have been hurt by illegal immigration, and Donald Trump is saying hire Americans first and stop driving down wages, and in the meantime we'll keep our country safe. What's wrong with that, Juan?
It's not flip-flops. This guy's doing somersaults, and apparently you are intentionally blind because you don't want to see it. You don't want to see your guy going down as the polls show him going down, down and down.
You know what I don't want to see? I don't want to see the meanness, the divisiveness, the anger, the vitriol.
You're right.
I don't want to see the race baiting that Hillary Clinton played this week. It is disgusting. It is low down, dirty, and despicable, and it should be beneath the office of the presidency. But considering it's her, and she's so dishonest, and she lies so often, and she sold out her office, and she got caught, I'm not surprised she did it.
Yeah, but if it was Kasich, if you had Kasich, if you had Rubio, if you had Jeb Bush,
sure the Republicans want you to pick their nominee for them, but that's not going to happen, Juan.
No. But they all subscribe to the immigration plan that you say, oh no, that's not a flip-flop by Donald Trump. Donald Trump won your primary on that basis.
It's no flip-flop. One thing you have to understand, when Donald Trump calls Hillary a bigot, bigotry does not always manifest as hatred. Bigotry can be manifest with kindness and niceness. For Hillary Clinton to imply or insinuate consistently that she has to reach down to help African Americans, she considers African Americans to be inferior to her.
Let me play number 10 here.
African Americans as inferior to her and as needing her help.
I want to ask, why is it that Al Gore, why is it that Hillary Clinton, and even I've noticed with Barack Obama, if they speak before a predominantly black audience why does their tone, their pitch, and their cadence shift like this?
I don't feel no ways tired. I come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me that the road would be easy. Now let me tell you, I'm aware I may not be the youngest candidate in this race, but I have one big advantage. I've been coloring my hair for years.
Is that pandering, Pastor? That seems like it's pandering to me.
Pantomimes us, that's insulting. She might as well put on blackface. That's what she might as well do. She pantomimes us, she insults us, it is
insulting. There is something pandering and insulting, Niger, right about that?
Well, you forgot the clip of the hot sauce in the purse that she travels around with, as we all know, right? Particularly when she goes to the Hamptons.
I am not responsible for what guests say on this show. I've lost all control. All right. Guys, good to see you all. Thank you. Even you, Juan. Love you. Thank you.
Sean. Thank you.
And coming up next on the special edition of Hannity.
It really does take a lot of nerve to
Ask people he's ignored and mistreated for decades, what do you have to lose? Because the answer is everything.
Hillary Clinton playing the race card, trying to smear Donald Trump to African-American voters. We'll check in with Austin Goolsbee, James Harris. They'll debate that, and also later tonight.
My work as Secretary of State was not influenced by any outside forces. I made policy decisions based on what I thought was right.
Hillary claiming she was not influenced by the Clinton Foundation donors while serving as Secretary of State, despite growing evidence day by day that, in fact, she did sell access and she did benefit financially. That and more as this edition of Hannity continues.
The stories that had America talking.
The Congressional Budget Office says this year's deficit will be $590 billion.
Many critics say that the visit by the president is just too little and it's too late.
Coverage all day and all night.
Witnesses calling what just happened to their homes in their town apocalyptic.
What does Mr. Trump need to do to catch her? Is it historically possible?
In these critical times, only one team delivers the critical coverage you need. We are most watched. We are most trusted. We are Fox News Channel.
During a campaign speech, Hillary Clinton attacked Donald Trump on his treatment of black Americans and warned American voters this. Watch.
He doesn't see the success of black leaders in every field, the vibrancy of black-owned businesses, the strength of the black church. He doesn't see the excellence of historically black colleges and universities or the pride of black parents watching their children thrive. It really does take a lot of nerve to ask people he's ignored and mistreated for decades, what do you have to lose? Because the answer is everything.
Here with reaction, former Obama economic advisor. He's partly responsible for the worst recovery since the 1940s, the lowest labor participation rate since the 1970s, the lowest home ownership rate in 51 years. That would be Austin Goolsbee, and radio talk show host with Scripps, James T. That would be you. How are you, Austin? Good to see you.
I'm totally responsible. Now I'm only partly responsible.
Well, Obama implemented these dumb policies. Let's take a look at, let's go to the videotape. Hillary and Josh Earnest and Obama say by every measure, African Americans are better off. Okay, the number of African Americans on food stamps since Obama took office is up 58%. The number of African Americans in poverty up 8% under Obama, 8.2%. Number of African Americans not in the labor force. Get this, nearly 20% under Obama. Home ownership rate for black Americans down 4.6%. Median household income is lower for African Americans under Obama. And by the way, that doesn't even count the $4,100 on average increase in health care because people didn't keep their doctors, their plans, or save money like the president said they would. So, Austin, I'm sure you're going to say black Americans are better off. What statistics do you cite?
Well, I'm going to tell you two statistics. One, you're kind of all over the map there. You got to bring it into focus.
8 years of Obama. Black Americans are off in all those categories.
Now, hold on. We'll take any category you want. Let's start with food stamps.
58% increase.
The first term. Now, wait. You got to let me give you any statistics before you interrupt me. From 2008 to 2012, we had a horrible recession. The number of people on food stamps skyrocketed. In the last 5 years, the number of people on food stamps has been falling significantly. It's come down 4.5 million
Still
since
58% increase.
2012.
58% increase.
It has fallen dramatically in the last 5 years, and that is why.
Oh, so we should only count the years of Obama that you want to count, and we'll forget the other years. Okay, James Harris, let me go to you.
We can argue about term one, but in term two, we can agree it's been getting a lot better.
James, in the history of the United States, to never reach 3% GDP growth. Obama will accumulate more debt in his 8 years as president than all 43 presidents before him combined. I know Austin doesn't want to look at how bad it's been in the last 8 years, but we have 1 in 5 American families without a single family member working. We have young men 18 to 34, 1 in 6 are incarcerated or out of the labor force living with mommy and daddy. Now, Austin can say, don't count this year and that year, but if it's the worst recovery since the 1940s, I think that pretty much says it all.
I agree with you, and I also have to say that these policies that have been in place for the better part of 50, 60 years have been detrimental to the black family, particularly, and to the nation's families in general. And this is what is so brilliant about Donald Trump saying, what do you have to lose? Because it doesn't make a difference if you talk about the last 8 years or you talk about the last 50 years. These policies have been in place, and they have devastated our inner cities, and they have devastated our economy.
You know, there was a Pew poll that came out, and Donald Trump wasn't a big number, but he had 14.6% of the African American vote. That is higher than the last 8 Republican presidents. Barack Obama got literally 93% of the vote in 2012 from the black community. Do you think that changes, James?
Well, you know, as I told you the last time I was with you, Sean, if Donald Trump continues to talk about these particular issues, what these policies, the impact that they have had on inner cities, if they talk about the impact that it's had on families, I think that he can peel off enough to cause problems. And just look at how the Democrats, how Hillary Clinton's camp have been reacting in the last week. They are certainly spooked by this, because he is finally speaking truth to people who have been disenfranchised by these Democrat policies for decades.
Let me ask you, Austin Goolby, just on 3 things. Obama said that $9 trillion in debt, we're taking a credit card to the Bank of China in the name of our kids, and we're running up this debt. It's irresponsible, he said. It's unpatriotic. How do you explain that he has accumulated more debt than all 43 presidents before him combined? He's the only president never to get 3% GDP growth. And how do you explain the worst recovery since the 1940s?
Okay, let's work backwards. It's not the worst recovery since the 1940s. It
actually is, yeah.
It has been a tortoise recovery, not a hare recovery. Normally in recoveries, you come booming back and then you go back into recession. It's a business cycle. This one never got the big, fast upturn, but it has now been the longest string of private sector job creation.
More debt than all presidents before him combined.
Okay, so then let's address the debt. How did that happen?
It's Bush's fault, right?
In the first term, when we have a horrible recession, the deficit explodes. Since that first term, the deficit has come down more than it has ever come down, and it's actually below what it was as a share of the economy under the Bush administration.
Excuse me, there has never been, the worst year of George Bush's debt was about $450 billion. This man will accumulate more debt than every other president before him combined. He's been president 8 years, and you're still talking about Bush.
Sean,
when does the buck stop with Obama? He hasn't even got 3% GDP growth. The only president in history that never reached 3% GDP growth in a year.
Sean, I know you're afraid, and if I were you, I would be afraid too.
I'm not afraid of anything.
Donald Trump is losing the election badly. His approval rating among African Americans is literally 8% out of 100.
Well, I guess you support Hillary playing the race card then. Is you okay with that? You okay with her putting
Donald
Klan
Trump
members
hired
up there?
a guy who has espoused white nationalist views.
No,
Donald
he is
Trump
not.
has
That's a lie. Austin, I'm not going to let you lie. That's just not true. That's just not true. James, have you seen any example of white supremacy in Donald Trump's life? I haven't.
No, I haven't. Only with the media is playing. But I would like to challenge Mr. Goolsby to join me in any city in America, whether it be Milwaukee, my hometown, Chicago, Baltimore. Let's just spend a day together and let's ask Americans of African descent, are they better off now than they were 8 years ago? If they say, yeah, they are, then you know what? I'll wear a vote for Hillary shirt, even though I won't vote for her. But if they say they are not, then I think it's time for people to get serious.
Hey, Austin.
That's a fair challenge, and I would do that if you want to come to Chicago. I'm happy to go around
listen,
with you.
if you go to Chicago, remember, they lost over 3,500 people, and Obama doesn't care about those people. He only goes to the high-profile cases. Just saying.
Well, I would like to ask the question,
what?
Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? We already had a referendum on the first term.
No.
Obama won that referendum by 5 million votes.
Okay.
Now on his second term,
the worst recovery since the 40s, lowest labor participation rate since the 70s, lowest home ownership rate in 51 years, 58% of black Americans increase in food stamps, 20% increase out of the labor force, and you're defending it.
You keep trying to include the recession in the first 2 years of the administration.
All of Obama's years. I mean, he's the only president that we need to extrapolate out years of his presidency to justify your insanity.
wait, let us say we could agree that there were mistakes in the first 2 years. Do you not think it's relevant that for 5 years all of those statistics have been improving?
Repeat after me, Austin. Obama economic failure.
Obama economic success. There was no depression, and even you have to admit that that was an achievement.
It feels like a depression when you have the lowest labor, when you have 95 million Americans out of the labor force. It feels like a depression of the 50 million people,
the
50 million Americans in poverty. It feels like a depression of the 46 million Americans on food stamps. Easy for you to say that sitting there in your Booth School of Economics, telling us it's great when it sucks for so many people.
Sean, you got a lot more assets than I have.
God bless you all. Coming up next on the special edition of Hannity.
My work as Secretary of State was not influenced by any outside forces. I made policy decisions based on what I thought was right.
Hillary Clinton brushing aside the close ties between her family foundation and the State Department, despite numerous reports of paying for access. Charlie Hurt, David Limbaugh are next, and then later a fallout over a New York Post report about Clinton aide Uma Abedin's ties to an radical Islamic publication, and Hillary's 2010 speech in Saudi Arabia, where she allegedly defended.
And she says, no, I still made decisions based on the nation's best interest. So yeah, that's self-serving. You don't put yourself in that kind of a conflict. There is no way there wasn't pay for play with Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton.
A lot of people maybe don't know what pay for play means. So in other words, so of the 150 some odd civilians that got access to her as Secretary of State, more than half donated to the Clinton Foundation or promised money to the Clinton Foundation. So if you donate money, you get access, pay to play, and some of those people were given contacts so they could make even more money and then kick it back to the Clintons.
Yeah, and do you think anybody would pay those kind of speech fees when they're not going to get anything in return unless they get something from the government in return?
What do they expect? I've never seen anybody sell, and this drives me nuts about the anti-Trump people. You know, really? Okay, you're against Donald Trump, yet he's going to appoint originalist justices, and he's going to vet refugees, and he's going to make us energy independent, not put coal mining businesses out of business. What's wrong with these Republicans?
Well, I don't know, but I'm voting for Trump. Hillary is the worst of the worst.
The worst of the worst. Why don't they say that?
Why don't they talk about the Bahrain Crown Prince who donated $32 million to the Clinton Global Initiative,
right,
and $150 to the Clinton Foundation after he had access to Hillary?
Yeah, and that's
unbelievable.
The thing. So he goes through the Clinton Foundation. This guy Doug Bang or whatever his name is, who's running the Clinton Foundation, Charlie, and they can't get access. But lo and behold, he gets in touch with them right into Hillary Clinton's office. Now, you don't donate, you don't get access.
Yeah, there's no way of looking at this as anything but a shakedown scheme, and they've been running it for. And I love how they're now saying that, well, if Hillary Clinton gets elected president, then we'll step down from the board. Even that sounds almost like it's a bribe, like it's like sort of like pressuring voters to vote for her.
Is this why Hillary's playing the race card this week?
I think without a doubt. I think that a big part of it is that Democrats who have learned that they lie, the Clintons lie about everything. You cannot believe a word that they say. That even Democrats are really worried about all the other emails that are going to come out. Because no matter how much the Clintons lie, those emails do not lie. You can't, they can attack the messenger and they can attack Julian Assange, but they cannot refute the facts, the black and white of what these email deals are.
Is that why she's playing the race card now?
Absolutely, and she's scared. She knows what Assange knows, obviously, because she knows what's on those emails, and he wouldn't be saying there was some big October surprise.
I was watching him on Fox and Friends this morning. He was clear. There's a lot more to come.
And it's the same Clinton MO. There's nothing to see here. The private activity has nothing to do with the public, our work in public office, and I can't be responsible for your perception. That's what Clinton's saying.
Right, we got to take a break.
Yeah.
But anyway, good to see you. Welcome to New York.
Thank you.
We never get to see you here. All right, coming up next on the special edition of Hannity, new controversy over the New York Post's explosive report about Clinton aide Uma Abedin and her ties to radical Muslim Journal, and also Hillary's 2010 speech in Saudi Arabia where she reportedly defended the mistreatment of women by the Saudis. We've got it all covered straight ahead tonight on Hannity. Clinton. Tonight, more fallout over a New York Post article detailing longtime Clinton aide Uma Abedin's controversial Islamic connections. Now, in 2010, according to the Post, Abedin, who was raised in Saudi Arabia, quote, arranged for then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton to speak alongside her hijab-wearing mother at an all-girls college in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Now, the Post continues that at no point in her long visit there, which included a question and answer session, did the so-called champion of women's rights protest the human rights violations that Saudi Arabian women suffer under Sharia laws that Abedin's mother actively promotes. Now, the Post goes on to report that Hillary Clinton, quote, also assured the audience of burqa-clad girls that not all American girls go around in bikini bathing suits. Maybe they work in burkinis. What do they call those things in France that were up in the news this week? Joining us now with reaction, Fox News contributor Mercedes Schlapp, Fox News contributors and former Clinton pollster Doug Schoen, and he is with The Hill media reporter Joe Concha. Thank you all for being with us. Mercedes, you know, I'm trying to understand this. She goes to Saudi Arabia. Women are oppressed. They can't drive. They're told how to dress. They can't leave the country without a man's permission. They can't go to work or school without a man's permission. Gays and lesbians are killed. Christians and Jews can't worship as they want. So they persecute women, gays, lesbians, Christians, and Jews, and she takes money from them and never criticizes them. If that was Donald Trump, it would be game over, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, how many times, Sean, have you heard the phrase from Hillary Clinton, women's rights are human rights? And I don't think that was a phrase she used while she was giving her speech in Saudi Arabia to these Muslim women. I think that it is very clear that Hillary Clinton says one thing and acts in a different way. And one of these components that you clearly see is with the Clinton Foundation, where they accept tens of millions of dollars from Saudi Arabia, where you, as you mentioned, it's oppressive to women. And more than that is the fact that Abedin's mom, Uma Abedin's mom, is one who is this editor-in-chief of this journal that's very much focused on Sharia law, which is anti-American, anti-woman, anti-gay.
Well, and it gets worse than that, though.
That's right.
Let me throw this to Joe. She, when there with the mother, Joe, literally said that Americans must do better at getting past, quote, the stereotypes and mischaracterization of Saudi women as oppressed.
Well, I want to focus on...
She's bought, paid, and sold to the Saudis, and she'll accept any bigotry or misogyny, clearly, for money.
So I'd like to talk to Uma Abedin about this, Sean, but she doesn't do many interviews. I looked it up. She's done 2 interviews this entire year.
Let me guess, Rachel Maddow.
Not quite, no.
Oh, okay,
2 weeks ago with Vogue magazine, and then back in May, not with the publication, but with the FBI. Those are the only 2 times she's done interviews this year. So if you want to go to the source to see exactly what happened with Uma Abedin, you're not going to get it directly from her.
What about her 12 years that she was a part of this controversial magazine that, you know, had, let's put up on the screen here, where the magazine that her mother and brother and sister also worked out as well, where they argued against female empowerment. We'll put it up on a split screen here, where the same magazine pointed out that they rationalized domestic abuse. We'll put that up there. Also that the mother blamed 9/11 on American injustices committed in the Middle East. Her name was on all of that. And she is the closest person to the Secretary of State?
And could be White House Chief of Staff if Hillary Clinton wins. If you look at the masthead, and this is the Journal of Minority Affairs, she is listed as Associated Editor. An Associated Editor, the definition of, is to prepare written material for publication. But Nick Merrill, the campaign spokesman for the Clinton campaign, says she did not play a role in editing at the publication. So if she's listed as an Associate Editor, and she's not editing, then what exactly was her job there? Again, you can't go to the source about it.
You know, Doug, you and I often agree on issues involving radical Islam.
We do.
And I would think, looking at this controversy involving Uma should be fired, correct?
I would say the following.
Well, should she be fired? That's my question.
She certainly shouldn't be making Middle East policy. But we need the Saudis, we need the Egyptians, and we need, Sean, most important, Israel.
So how is
because they are a bulwark against Iran.
There's no bigger defender of Israel than yours truly, and you know that.
That's why I'm saying this, because we agree.
How does she take money isn't it kind of blood money when they kill gays and lesbians? Isn't it kind of blood money when she says we've got to get past the stereotypes and mischaracterizations
it's a
of Saudi women?
wrong.
Wait a minute. She can't be the champion of women's rights and take monies from the Saudis.
I want her to be the champion of America and our interests in the Middle East, where war can happen if we don't resist Iran. We need the Saudis.
Doug, you need to become a Trump supporter if you want them to be the champion of America. That's for
Can I tell you, she's more assertive she is more assertive than Donald Trump. She doesn't have an America First policy, Mercedes.
Didn't she sell out her principles for money to the Clinton Foundation?
I think there's clearly a hypocrisy here from Hillary Clinton. It's the idea of coming out, playing the woman card, trying to be this champion for women's rights, yet at the same time she bows down to the Saudis and really does not talk about these violations that occur. So she's not a champion for women, gays, lesbians, Christians, and to the special edition of Hannity Now. Donald Trump's son, Eric Trump, is fighting back against the Clinton campaign's baseless attacks on his father, Donald Trump. Fox and Friends co-host Ainsley Earhardt sat down with Eric and his wife to talk about this and more. Take a look.
What has your dad done to help the African American community specifically? Let me start off by saying we hire so many people generally, but my father hires so many African Americans. We hire so many Latinos and Hispanics. He's always been the person to sign the front of a check. He's never been the person to sign the back of a check. And I think that's very different than the career politicians that you see in Washington, D.C., who's always lived off the government and always profited from the government.
Joining us now is the co-host of Fox and Friends, Ainsley Earhardt. Since you've been on the show, we don't see you anymore. So it's great to have you back.
I miss you all.
I wanted to send you down from spring break this year. You weren't available.
Right. I had a baby. I was pregnant. I couldn't have gone to spring break.
Yeah, that wouldn't have worked out too well.
Right. Thanks so much. Yeah, it's fun. I feel like
I didn't mean it that way. I mean, it would be harder for you.
I know what you mean. So anyway, I sat down with Eric Trump before we interviewed Eric and his wife, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But he did say, when we asked him the questions about the African American community, he said, if you look at the stats and what President Obama has done for the African American community, it hasn't been good. He said 58% increase in black Americans on food stamps, 20% increase in black Americans out of the labor force.
Those are huge numbers. That's since Obama's been president. There was a Pew poll that shows he's doing better with black Americans, 14.6%, not that high, but better than the last 8 Republican presidential candidates. Is he making inroads? Is that why Hillary used this racial attack?
I don't know. Well, he sat down and had that roundtable discussion with minorities and with the African American leaders in our country. That apparently went very well. I interviewed one of the ladies who was at that meeting, and she said he wanted to listen to them, hear what needs to change within the African American community. He really wants to get out there and make some changes. He says by 2020 he's going to have 95% of.
All right, who's more difficult to deal with in the morning, Brian or Steve? I'm just trying to cause a little trouble.
I know. By the way, we were at the rally with you
in
at Town Hall, and that message that you said for Brian and Steve, we actually aired it on the morning show.
Oh, did you?
Sleeping. Yeah. But by the way, if you want to watch the full interview with Eric and his wife, go to our website. It's foxandfriends.com.
All right, Ainsley, thanks so much. It's great work this election year, too.
Thank you.
And coming up, very important question of the day. We need your help. Are you concerned about Hillary's association with Huma Abedin and her mother? Go to Facebook.com/Sean Hannity, at Sean Hannity on Twitter. That's all the time we have left. Ainsley's going to catch the football. Have a great weekend. See you Monday.